Well, well, well. We're back on the field. This is the final segment. Ooh, that quietened everyone down. All right, how are we doing? Slido. Anonymous, where are you? You've had a lot to say. And we're going to collate all those responses and organise them and feed them back to people. So please keep asking questions, making comments. It's going to be valuable, as I said earlier, to the stakeholders, but also for you as participants. Including the Quest, who said they're ready for the airport. Quest Penrith, that is. So Phil Wiley and his team are here. What a great 2 sessions we had through till morning tea and now into lunch. So coming up this afternoon, we have the operators. We also have the nighttime economy, and then we'll be going into sport tourism, and then we wind up with a conversation about what happens next. But I hope you feel like me that it's going well so far, and stay with us through to the end, because the networking is one of the most powerful things around these events, as we know. But kicking in now, I would like to say that our next panel is one I'm very excited about, because when we look at the visitor economy, we need infrastructure, investment that activates the opportunities that creates, and of course a high quality experience that makes visitors want to return, whether that's in a hotel or it's an attraction. So now let's hear from our experienced operators and experts in tourism operations. And our resident expert will be asking the questions. He does know a thing or two about tourism, but I'm not sure he's operated a business like some of our panelists have. And let's start up the mountains with a leader in the industry, Anthea Hammon, the Managing Director of Scenic World, a 3rd-generation family business. Keep it coming. There's a lot to say about Anthea. Since 1945, that family business has been going, and it's Australia's most visited privately owned attraction. Anthea has played a leading role in the company's evolution with a strong focus on investment and sustainable tourism. I keep mentioning this nighttime thing. I'm going to ask you, I'm sure Stuart will dig into that. Anthea has been a mobilising and influential leader in the tourism sector for many years, and a great collaborator across the system and with us down here in the valley. So welcome to Anthea. Our next stop is at West HQ with CEO Richard Errington. Richard is taking us into the future by reshaping Sydney's perception of what is available in Western Sydney. He has transformed the former Rooty Hill RSL into a multifaceted venue which includes world-class sporting, health and recreational facilities, hotel accommodation, gaming, entertainment and hospitality experiences. Welcome, Richard. And just along the track, I've left my water bottle on the table, but it's a Sydney Zoo water bottle, and we're going to hear from Managing Director Jake Swifty Burgess. Jake is the concept designer of the Sydney Zoo project. It has been his passion over the past 5 years to develop and operate a world-class zoo to accommodate the demands of Western Sydney. The zoo will deliver unforgettable experiences between people and animals, using technology to enhance learning and engagement. Finally, let's hear from someone who covers the whole spectrum, representing the Australian Tourism Export Council, or ATEC, and that is Jennifer Bruce. Welcome, Jennifer. Jennifer is a partnerships and distribution specialist with over 15 years of experience in inbound, outbound and domestic partnerships in the tourism and hospitality sectors. Jennifer has assisted many tourism products and regions in developing their offering for suitability to international markets. How fitting for our conversation. Let's get airport ready and take it away, Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Well, this is a diverse panel. There is seriously a big, wide mixture of experiences and businesses here. And in fact, that's the thing we really want to dive into, is the concept of generating experiences for people who come to Western Sydney and how we really start to position them out in the marketplace. We've heard a lot about the infrastructure that's going to lay the big foundational pieces. We've heard from hotel operators, some of the government agencies that are doing the promotional and connecting work. But you guys are the coalface. You are the people that are on the ground, actually running a business, selling tickets, putting people through the gates to make money, and definitely helping a lot of businesses to do those things, particularly in sort of ATEC's case. Richard, I'm going to go to you first, because you're the CEO of a club, which has been a big part of the Western Sydney narrative, the Western Sydney culture. But your club has really evolved away from being just the club into a destination in itself. And you've done that by investing in a lot of visitor experiences, hotels, theatres. Give the room a bit of an insight into why you've made those decisions from your business perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Stu. When we look back over time, there were two moments of time. One was back in 1996, when I was involved with building the Olympic precinct, the Olympic Stadium, and looking how Homebush at that stage was Western Sydney, the extent of Western Sydney. But the development subsequently 25 years later that we're now aspired to. But Homebush was the first one, 1996, and then the most inspirational one for us, which created the theatre and restaurants and second hotels and so forth, was 2012, was Barangaroo. And the development of Barangaroo was our inspiration, because in 2012 it was just a used shipping container destination. And when today, 11 years later, 10 years later, and so forth, you see the development there. That's what we wanted to create back in about 2010, was the Barangaroo of Western Sydney, because we needed to survive and we needed to have a variety of reasons for people to visit our venue, not just be a club, but to draw people from beyond the local 5-kilometre, local 20-kilometre radius to what then became a destination. So I'd say, to answer your question, Stu, Homebush, the Olympic precinct, and Barangaroo as a destination, and subsequently West HQ, our ambition is to create it as a destination.
So you're looking at things that are happening in other parts of Sydney and going, if we don't lift our game, if we don't create extra offerings, we're going to get left behind. Is that what you're thinking?
Oh, absolutely. Look, let's be honest, when I look back, and when Rudy Hill RSL wanted its own postcode, but it was more about changing something that was old, embedded into a culture, but that culture was unfortunately dying. And the population was progressing, so it was no longer relevant.
Jake, you and your business, zoos, it's at the pointy end of the visitor experience. Cities around the world don't have many of them. Sydney now has 2. The Sydney Zoo brought the zoo experience to Western Sydney. You can attract everyone from a family from Glenmore Park to global music superstars. I know you've got an NDA, but surely you'll let us in on something that... No, only joking.
She's a very nice lady.
She's a very nice lady. But
I actually didn't get that Swifty allegation. I thought it was referring to something else. But
it's a big thing, right? So you've gone and invested in a zoo. It's become, like, we do jokingly talk about global superstars, but that's a big validation of your product and a validation of Western Sydney. Why Western Sydney? Why zoo?
Well, when it comes to zoos, there's a very specific set of circumstances around why we wanted to create Sydney Zoo. First, and it's primarily predicated on the fact that Taronga is located at the wrong side of town for the majority of the population.
Yep.
So we always created this business as primarily a local audience play, looking to improve livability, looking to improve the sense of a place for people of Western Sydney, and I think we've done a good job of that. we've never really approached the tourism market per se from a VFR perspective, because there are specific disadvantages which I'll dig into in a second.
Yeah.
But what we do win in reasonable amount is the conduit, which was mentioned previously, the conduit up to the Blue Mountains. Where we struggle as a business, and I think it needs to be addressed, is we're essentially an island. We're a single destination. We've got West HQ sort of 5-6 kilometres away, but we need. I'm vitally interested in seeing significantly more aligned tourism stock attractions come into Western Sydney, because at the moment, sitting as we are virtually alone in Blacktown, sorry Richard, but as a zoo, as an attraction, sitting alone in Blacktown, it is a really hard task to get someone who's independently travelling around to divert to the zoo in Blacktown, where they've got to schlep 40 minutes to get there. There's nothing else around it, versus catch the ferry, see the opera house, all of that sort of stuff. So we haven't got enough critical mass in Western Sydney, and that's the one struggle we've got at the moment. But we are doing really well.
So I think that's a really important point, that as a venue operator or an experience operator, you want other experiences, because that's good for your business.
Well, I mean, you look at, it's going to take time, but you look at the experience in Orlando, right? Orlando is effectively a swamp, and it's getting millions and millions and millions of tourists every year. It's got it's got the world's largest functions business that we spoke about before. It's got aerospace, it's got film and TV. All of those are multi-billion industries, but all of that hangs off the fact that Walt Disney in 1960 said, I want to build a zoo on the East Coast, a fun park on the East Coast, and he chose not to do Tampa because it was hurricane prone, right? 50 years later, the virtuous circle that has been created around that, like, it has no natural amenity to speak of really. It's all built around that single entity and everything that's hung off it over the years, and it's got its own momentum. So the airport's going to be incredibly important for lifting that as well.
Anthea, family business. We've spoken a lot about Western Sydney, but you and your family straddle literally the two things we've spoken about a lot. The Harbour Bridge, like literally straddle the Harbour Bridge, and the Blue Mountains, where you could probably argue that Scenic World straddles at least a valley or a gully. How have you seen the tourism maturity evolve and the visitor economy maturity evolve in Western Sydney? Because you've been operating in these different markets for a while now, and you're probably the most visible experience business when it comes to the Blue Mountains.
Definitely. Us and the Three Sisters. Am I on? Us and the Three Sisters, for sure. It's evolved. I mean, in 70 years, it's obviously evolved quite a lot, but if I cut it down to the last sort of 20, we obviously had a huge rise of Japanese through the 1990s, and that tailed off. As we know, the Japanese are very conservative travellers. We've then seen the rise of Korea and China as our main market into the mountains, as well as bolstered by the Western markets of US, UK. We're starting to see those come back now. Certainly US, UK, India are growing. We're seeing great numbers out of Vietnam. A really interesting fact about Scenic World, BC I call it, because I don't like to say the C word. So BC, of every Korean person that landed in Sydney, Scenic World saw 80% of them. Just a phenomenal statistic, and it talks to how that market travels. They're they're a more immature travel market. They tend to have very homogeneous tours. Everybody does the same thing. And I think coming out of COVID, what we're seeing is a maturation of a number of markets where people are now starting to travel as FITs, and the airport, Western Sydney Airport is going to be so important to not only first get those group travellers out of emerging markets, but then allow FITs that want to stretch their legs further than just the city to be able to come in and be able to do that and base themselves in Western Sydney.
Jen, that's a great segue to you. ATEC is an association that's supporting operators. Give a few people in the room that might actually be in the tourism industry, or offering an experience or product but haven't always thought about how they position that product to an inbound traveller, whether it be a visiting family and relative or a free and independent traveller, if you're not up with the acronyms. So Jen, just give us a little bit of insight into what ATEC does and how ATEC can help businesses get better prepared for the volume of people that are going to be coming here through the infrastructure we've spoken about through the course of the day.
Thanks, Stuart. So for those that aren't familiar with ATEC, yet another acronym, thank you, Australian Tourism Export Council. We are the peak industry body for inbound tourism to Australia. So we support the supply side, if you like, and the work of the demand drivers like Destination New South Wales and B Sydney to support the supply side to understand how to tap into the opportunity. Our organisation is made up of about 800 member businesses right across Australia, those of which are with us on the stage today, as well as from the big end of town right to small operators. And every one of those organisations and stakeholders are all committed to targeting the international inbound markets, predominantly in the leisure space. So we connect buyers and sellers. The buyers, as we deem them, are the inbound tour operators or the online travel agents. Yep. Some more acronyms, ITOs and OTAs. With our sellers, so our products who are in the room wanting to sell. And that's what our association brings to the table, is that it's the commercial connectivity to convert that demand driving message. So we work in partnership with our demand driving bodies, our regional tourism organisations, state and national, to bring tourists to the table, and we support the supply side with education programs, these commercial events where you meet B2B, education is
and so, Jen, give me and the room a bit of an insight into, is Western Sydney engaged? Are they outside of the few of the people that we've got on the stage today? Are you seeing more Western Sydney businesses get involved in that? You're a gateway to their future customer. We've spoken a lot about the need for collaboration and coordination activities. You're doing that. Is Western Sydney getting ready, or are they still maybe a little bit trapped in the barriers?
Is everyone feeling a bit loose after lunch? Shall I be honest, or shall I sugarcoat?
We're being honest.
We're being
today.
honest. I would say that the appetite is there, and everybody's indicating that, oh, absolutely, we've got to put that on our list. But bar my colleagues on the stage and a couple of others in the audience, I think we're still a little resistance coming out of PC, post-C, to delve in and target the international markets. But I'm here to tell you, and I'm thrilled that Stuart asked me to be part of this panel today, we don't have the luxury of time, and now is the time that us as tourism operators, and we need to understand that it's a hunting in packs. It's a hunting pack system, as Jake was saying, and all three of us on stage today, that if we're not collectively offering some great commercial opportunities and experiences to the international markets, they aren't going to stay. They're not going to stay one night. They're certainly not going to be able to stay for 2 nights. And we're going to continue in this arrowhead of experience where they will enjoy Sydney East and Sydney CBD. They will shoot straight through. They will come and visit the zoo. They will head out to Scenic World, and we will lose the opportunity for them to stay at some of our great hotels in the region and to experience more and deeper experiences here. And we contract the international inbound market contracts at least 2 years ahead of time. So likewise, Lynn was saying, our incentive markets, our business events markets, they're bidding for 2030. Our rates and contracts need to be out in the market now for 25, 26. And we're knocking on the door of 26 and this airport opening and changing the game for us. So now is the time to get engaged.
Anthea, someone who's done this for a while now, what do other businesses need to be doing? Like you've heard just there, Jen talk about rates and contracts for 25, 26, which is when Simon's telling us first passenger planes are going to be landing. So that's more demand. Yes, welcome as the board member from that airport too. Wouldn't expect anything else. But at the small business level, what should businesses really be putting on their work schedule right now to be airport ready, to be international and consumer ready?
I think firstly, you really want to understand who's your target market. Because if you're not Scenic World and you can't put through 1 million people a year, but you can put through 8 to 10 quality people a day. Talk to ATEC about who are the companies that are delivering small niche market tours. Who are they? Because they are out there. And how can you fit into an itinerary to the Blue Mountains? Maybe they're also going to Sydney Zoo and Scenic World, but maybe they have time for a stopover on the way back through Penrith. I think the other real amazing thing that the airport's going to do is it will change up how that day tour operates, obviously. It opens up new areas that the current day tour operators, big, small, luxury, whatever, are not going to.
Which is the thing that Lynn was talking about earlier, reshaping the
Reshaping the itinerary. So, for example, a day trip to the Blue Mountains now goes back home via the Hawkesbury because they have an extra hour and a half to 2 hours in their day. So if you're a small operator in the Hawkesbury, for example, and you do tastings or you do whatever it is that you do, are you talking to ATEC about who are those luxury markets that we can now tap into and help reshape that day tour? And I think that's part of that coordination is how do we start putting together those itineraries. I think ATEC and Sydney have all said today that that's going to be a really important component of the next 2 years. So having a product that works in an international market, lean on the ATECs of the world to help you understand what that is, but know who you want to target, know who that market is, what's your price point, how's that going to work?
Richard and Jake, I want to ask you the same question because you, I think, have a very similar, whilst your experiences are very different, what you actually are in Western Sydney, I think, is quite similar, that you both built infrastructure and experiences for people to come and visit targeted at domestic audiences where the additional benefit or yield, if you were going to use that terminology, is going to come from the inbound visitor, whether it's international or interstate. How are you thinking about your business from a theatre and hotel perspective and from a zoo perspective to move beyond servicing the domestic market that has underpinned your business cases to now become a growth market?
Our focus is 2028 to 2032. And the reason it's a focus is the time before the Brisbane Olympic Games.
Yep.
So we believe for Western Sydney and for our hotel and our business, in one aspect, we've got a number of aspects of our business, but the airport will be the carrier. That's not the reason. The Olympic Games for us, with the Olympic sports and being in the Southern Hemisphere, what happened in 2000 was that a number of countries came to Australia to train in advance and compete in advance of the Olympic Games. And because the facilities won't be completed in Brisbane, we believe, and we've had discussions with government, they also believe that the opportunity for us in Western Sydney will be 5 Olympic sports in our case. So we've targeted down to 5 Olympic sports. So 2028 to 2032 Olympic Games for the hotel sector, the hotel part of our business, and when we expand our hotel business. The second one was the theatre, which was a pretty bold move, building a performing arts theatre in Western Sydney, an immature market in Western Sydney. We've struggled. We've been financially successful, but we've struggled. And we've struggled with the view of, is it Sydney or Western Sydney? Well, we call the theatre the Sydney Coliseum Theatre. And why? Because we knew that the local community couldn't support us being able to be successful with bringing international shows to Western Sydney. So by positioning our name as Sydney, we thought we'd get the beyond 50 kilometre radius custom. However, what we haven't achieved is the within 20 kilometre target.
Interesting.
Because that within 20 kilometre, there are 2 KPIs. The within 20 kilometre is your local custom, and to educate that market for them to buy a theatre ticket or have a theatre experience or a tourism experience, whatever the case may be, an entertainment experience. We now need to consider the renaming of the theatre and repositioning of the theatre, whether it is Sydney, goes to the 50 kilometre radius or not, or whether we rebrand the facility and shorten it. And we've been very successful, not many people would know, but we've had Australian Idol there. So we've brought Australian Idol to Western Sydney, and they've just signed for their 3rd year next year. Now, to get a piece of business for 3 months that contributes more than $2 million to your business, I think you'd agree it's a good piece of business and good for Western Sydney. However, when you listen to the promotion of it, it's Coliseum at Rooty Hill. Coliseum at Rooty Hill. It's not Sydney Coliseum Theatre. It's not Western Sydney. So we're struggling.
Jake, I just want to pick up on that because, Jake, that sounds a very similar exercise around how you chose Sydney as your brand.
We deliberately chose the name Sydney Zoo to position ourselves as a leading institution. We are inadvertently identified as Western Sydney Zoo continuously, and that's a challenge that we've got to undertake for our branding. But to come back to your question, I'm at the moment very focused on the opening of the airport. So I went to China on this mislabelled Chairman's Roadshow about 6 weeks after they lifted the bans on group tours, and we were the first Australian operator directly to do that. And I went through 4 cities, met all the agencies, wined and dined, and we had these big dinners. And the only thing and that's our largest market at the moment or pre-COVID PC. Sorry, Anthea. PC. I'll let it out. And the only thing that I could get out of that was that no one knew what the hell was going on in China, even the operators themselves. They've during this period, over the 2-3 years, they've become substantially more reliant on tech. Everything's going through WeChat now. Payments, introductions, everything, the super app that Mr. Musk is trying to create for the West. And that's changing the way people engage with technology in China. So long story short, I ended up appointing a direct representative based in Guangzhou. So I'm a multinational organisation now. And that's basically to try and secure as much of that market as we possibly can. We flew her out in February, and we brought all of the China-focused tourism operators out. They met her, we spoke about the facility, and then we all went out to the airport. And the thing that really, really surprised me is that almost none of those operators had been out, and almost none of those operators actually understood what the airport was. Yep. It was like the light bulb went on for them. And so we do need to do a better job of that engagement, because the dynamic is going to shift. The Chinese tour groups are saying they want $250 a night for their hotels, and you cannot get that in the CBD. Yep. Unless you work for Channel 7 as a producer. Had to get that in there. So you can't get that in the CBD. So what they're doing...
we were going to talk about taping.
No, so what they're doing now is they're getting off the plane, they're floating around the city, and they're going out to stay at either Olympic Park at your place or in Parramatta. So the renaissance around Parramatta is really good. That's dramatically improving the livability. And the airport's they're going to get off that plane, and they're either going to go to Anthea's place and around the Blue Mountains, or they're going to come to Sydney Zoo while they wait for their check-in, and then they're going to go to their hotel at Parramatta. That fundamental shift means that the volumes and the ability to, I guess, for want of a better term, the brand recognition of Western Sydney is going to be massively elevated as a result of that airport opening.
Jen, I want to ask you, how do we bring that back down to the smaller business? Not to say that these guys didn't start out as smaller businesses, but from the small operator that Anthea was talking about through to people who are investing in experiences. We've heard Lake House at Penrith Lakes, the same ski Dubai concept, right literally on the banks of the Nepean River being built by locals. There's plenty of things to talk about here, but so there's a diversity of businesses. No matter the size of the businesses in the room today, how do they start to bite off this, what sometimes looks like a really, really big task? And maybe the reason why they're not quite as forward in being prepared, it's still just a little bit too far away. It's not that far away at all.
Sure. I think in the back of your mind, we need to recognise that to get runs on the board in an international trade context, it can take up to 2 to 3 years for you to get real inroads into the market there. That's why you need to be starting now. Whilst you're doing that though, it's imperative that you're just digital ready to start with. If you're not online and not bookable, then you do not exist at all in a tourism context. So be digital ready, be domestic ready, so know how to target domestic trade as well as online via your own channels and online travel agents. And only then can you decide that you can target the international markets. And I'm imploring you to make that leap as quickly as possible, because when the planes start landing here, we're going to need you all in the room to be tourism trade ready in an international context as well. And as well as leaning not just on us, but I implore you to speak to your local government representatives. There's visitor economy specialists within council. The regional tourism organisations do a fantastic job in marketing your destination. Please lean on them. What markets are they targeting? Piggyback off that. You do not need to reinvent the wheel. And then, of course, that flows into working with Destination New South Wales. They offer a wealth of programs that will help you get ready, as well as our programs via them as well. Great partnership there. And then come along that journey and keep at it. It will take 2 to 3 years, but we're all here to support you along the journey. So just start online and go from there.
And to finish off, it's your capital on the line. It's your family money on the line. It's the members' money on the line in some respects for two of the people on the panel. Are you optimistic? Are you cautious? What's your mindset looking into the future right now? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I think we have an amazing opportunity ahead of us, and you've heard a number of times today that what we need to do is pull together, and I think what we're missing at the moment is a way for us to all do that. And you know, Stuart and I have had conversations. I've had conversations with a number of people in this room, but coming together without the rising tide lifts all boats. So it's not about any one entity gaining out of this. It is about a bunch of entities coming together and going, how can we all benefit, and how can we drive strategy in the region, and how can we, to Lynn's point, put together a task force to drive and figure out itineraries. And I think that's why I'm optimistic, because that opportunity is there, and we have 2 years to get it right before I help get that airport open, and it is so exciting.
Richard?
The biggest challenge is time.
Yep. Not enough of it?
Not enough. It's going to happen. I think what my personal opinion is that people who build in advance are successful because their infrastructure is ready when the facilities are open. But those who wait until the facilities are open and then create their infrastructure, they miss it.
Yeah.
They miss
so take some risks.
They miss it. So time's the great. Look, it's going to be successful. It's going to be one of the biggest regions in the world. Everything, all the ingredients are there. It's going to happen, but it's whether you're progressive enough to be ready for it when it does happen.
Jake?
I'm very optimistic. I've got a 2 to 3 year view that is very bullish. There's a few things that we need to do in terms of structural changes to our facility. One of the big problems we've got is we're starting to see the incentive groups come in, and 400 people want to take our restaurant for $25,000 for the day, and on that Sunday that restaurant's going to do $60,000. So we're actually turning business away.
Yeah.
And we need to keep reinvesting in our facility at the moment. So I'm really optimistic.
Jen, what's your views?
Thank you. I'm hugely optimistic, of course. I think we've still got a long way to go, especially from a leisure tourism perspective, to get back to where we were before. And you out here in this region are going to be the ones to help drive that. And I think an easy way that we can start is by engaging our local tourism industry to bring them out and show them what you've got. And we'd love to work with you on doing that too. So we've got to showcase it out here. Let's be proud of it.
Well, thanks very much for being part of Lights on Western Sydney. It's always great to hear from people who are actually running tourism businesses and experiences, who've put their own capital on the line, and there's a lot to learn from people in the room. So thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.